Hello guys, myself Assistant Professor Gaurang Prajapati from Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Technical Education and Research Center, Navsari. Today I am going to cover the chapter of direct and bending stresses of the subject Structural Analysis 1, 4th semester Civil Engineering. So, first let's see the weightage of the chapter. See, the weightage of the chapter in the G2 examinations are 17, 14, 14, 14, 13, 17, 10, 10, 10 in all the previous examinations. So on an average, the weightage of this chapter is 14 marks. So this is one of the most important chapter of the subject. See, this is the theoretical criteria of the chapter which has been asked in the examination. Okay, and this one is the example summary of the chapter, in which three types of examples are there: masonry pier, first category, then masonry dam and retaining wall, second category, and third masonry wall and cylindrical chimney. So these three are the different examples, or we can say the method, which have been continuously asked in the examination. We will cover all these three methods, and these are the examples which has already been asked from this chapter. Okay, so now first of all, let's start the chapter with the theoretical concept. So basically, often a structure member has to resist a direct axial load as well as bending moment. Means any object, or we can say structure, has to resist this load as well as bending moment. The direct axial load may be, we can say, tensile or compressive. For example, inclined loads on the beam, eccentric load on the column, wind pressure on the wall or chimney, and we can say water or earth pressure on dams and retaining wall. Okay, so these all are the variables, or we can say the direct axial load acting on the beam. For a member subjected to direct load and a bending moment, the actual stress set up at any point in the resisting sections will be the algebraic sum of the stresses due to direct load and bending moments. So in simple word, any object is subjected to direct load as well as bending moment, and because of this loads and moment, it will subjected to stresses, and these stresses are nothing just because of this load as well as moment. So direct load will always produce a direct stress. This one is the first parameter. So direct force will produce direct stress. And if the axial load is compressive, then compressive stresses will set up. And if the compressive load is, if the axial load is tensile, then tensile stresses will set up across the cross section. So depends. If compressive load is there, then stress will be compressive, while if tensile load is there, then stresses will be tensile. The bending moment produces the bending stresses of the cross sections. Okay, so the bending stress will be, may either be tensile or compressive. So overview of this theory is nothing. We can say the direct load will always produces direct stresses, while the bending moment will be produces that is bending stresses. Okay, this is the concept of this theory. Now let's try to understand these things in a better way. So first one, difference between axial load and eccentric load. So first of all, axial load. So this is the figure of axial load. We have already studied this one in the subject of MOS chapter stress and strain. Say axial load is any load which acts at the cross section of the column like this. Okay, or we can say longitudinal axis on. So see, axial load, when the load is acting along the longitudinal axis of the column, see this one is the longitudinal axis, and force is acting exactly upon it. Okay, it is known as axial load. Okay, what it will do, it will produces the direct stress, or we can say compressive stress in the column. So that's the first criteria. Now the second one, that is eccentric load. Okay, now eccentric load, that is the figure of this one. See, now in this one you can see that this one is our axial load, while force is not acting exactly on this one, force is acting at somewhat distance from this one. That distance is known as eccentricity. Okay, so definition: a load whose line of action does not coincide with the axis of the column is known as eccentric load. Clear? It is not exactly acting on this, we can say neutral, or we can say longitudinal axis. It is acting at somewhat other point, so its line of action doesn't coincide. It produces direct stress as well as bending stress in the column, while this one produces only direct stress, while this one will produces direct stress as well as bending stress. Next one, that is eccentricity. The horizontal distance between the longitudinal axis of the column and the line of action of the load is known as eccentricity. Let me just zoom figure, then I will let you know. See, in this one, this is the longitudinal axis. Okay, Now the force is acting exactly at this point. So the distance between these two, longitudinal axis and force, is known as, we can say, eccentricity. It is known as eccentricity. It is the horizontal distance between line of action of force and longitudinal axis. Okay. So we can say for axial load, it is, as it is already acting on the longitudinal axis, we can say eccentricity will be equals to 0 in this case. Okay. So see, for axial load, eccentricity equals to 0. So this is the basic introduction of the axial load as well as eccentric load and eccentricity. Now column with the eccentric load. Now in this one, okay, just let's see. See, column with the eccentric load. Now consider a column subjected to an eccentric loading. See, this one is our, for example, cross section, and a eccentric load is there which is acting at an eccentricity from the longitudinal axis. Okay, so first case, the given load P acting at an eccentricity of E as shown in figure A. So this one is figure A. Force is acting at a distance of eccentricity. Now next, let us introduce along the axis of the column two equal and opposite forces P as shown in figure B. Now what I am doing, that this one is our original. Let me zoom the figure first of all, just a minute. Now this force was already acting. Now what I am doing, that I am extracting an extra force P over here, and at the same time also applying in the opposite direction, so it will get balanced. Okay, like this. So I am applying two forces, say downward P and as well as at the same point upward P. That is okay, that is the second case. Now then third case, just a minute. Yeah, now third case, the force acting along the axis of the column as shown in figure C will produce the direct stress. Now what will happen, that the force acting along the axis of the column, say this one, as we have already seen the previous theory, the force which acts on the line of action, or we can say longitudinal axis of the column, will always produces the direct stress, that is sigma 0. So third figure indicates that direct stress will be produced, that is sigma 0, while fourth one, the other two forces form a couple as shown in figure D. Now what will happen, that two forces were there, this one and this one. Now these forces will couple, equal and opposite forces acting at the same distance between them. So what will do, they will do, or we can say they will form a couple. Okay, so the moment of this couple will be equals to, we can say, P into E, say. Okay, so this couple will cause a bending stress. So ultimately, just a minute, let me show the figure. If I want to take moment over here, just a minute, if I want to take moment over here, force is P and the perpendicular distance is E, so moment will be equals to P into E. Similarly, if I want to take moment at at this point of this force P, so it will be same, moment equals to P into E. So ultimately what will this do, this will form a couple, and the couple will produces bending stress in this one. Okay, so ultimately we can say, just a minute, so ultimately we can say, thus an eccentric load produces both direct stresses and bending stresses. Okay, while axial load always produces only direct stress. Okay, so this is the concept of this axial and, we can say, eccentric load. Axial force will always produces only direct stress, while eccentric load will produces both direct stress as well as bending stress. Okay, this is the conclusion of that theory. Then just a minute, maximum and minimum stress. See, just a minute. Yeah, maximum and minimum stresses. See, when a column is subjected to eccentric load, the edge of the column towards the eccentricity will be subjected to maximum stress, and the opposite edge will be subjected to minimum stress. See, maximum and minimum stress criteria are given there over here. Maximum stress, sigma max equals to direct stress plus bending stress, sigma 0. Now the formula of the direct stress will be force divided by area, that is P by A. See, you can see over here P by A, and sigma B, that will be M by Z, that is over here. Okay, where M stands for moment, we can say, we have already seen P into E, while Z, we can say, that is section modulus, that, just a minute, Z, that is section modulus, that is we can say, just a minute, I by y, like that we will get that one. Okay, so unknown parameters are there over here. Z, sigma 0 direct stress, sigma b bending stress, this one, sigma 0 that is p by, like that, sigma b that is m by z, m that is moment, p into e, where e stands for eccentricity, z stands for section modulus, that is I by y, where I that is mi, or we can say moment of inertia, and I y that is we can say distance of extreme fiber from the CG. So ultimately, in other words, I can say CG. So by simplifying this one, I can say p by e plus m by z. Okay, now putting down the value of z, that is I by y. Okay, and m that is we can say p into e. So by simplifying this one, I will get the answer, that is p by a in the bracket 1 plus 6 into e divided by b. Similarly, sigma minimum, that is direct stress minus bending stress, same formula will be there. Okay, so instead of plus it will be minus over here. So p by a in the bracket 1 minus 6 into e divided by b. So that's the formula for maximum and minimum stress. Okay, talking about sign convention, for compressive stress we will take positive, tensile stress it will taken as negative. See, if sigma 0, that means direct stress, is greater than bending stress, then sigma minimum will be positive, vice versa. If sigma 0 is less than sigma b, then sigma minimum will be negative, that is tensile. Okay, now next theory, that is column with the eccentric load. Now column with the eccentric load, for that one we need to consider this figure first of all. Okay, let's understand this figure by the detailed differentiation. So first of all, figure shows the stress distribution as the load P moves from the center of the column to the edge of the column. See, first one, say right now this one is our column, this one is longitudinal axis. Now the force is acting at P. Okay, so first statement, that is this one. When load on the column is axial, means is acting on the longitudinal axis. Okay, so eccentricity equals to 0. Stresses at both the edges will be equals and compressive in the nature. So ultimately, if I am drawing its stress strain diagram, then it will be same, sigma maximum equals to sigma minimum, that is this one. This will happen only when the force is axial, means it is acting exactly on the longitudinal axis of the column. That's the first case. Now next case, that is this one, statement will be this one. See, now with increase in eccentricity, now what I am doing, that we are increasing eccentricity, means force is moving towards the edge, like this. Okay, now the increase in the eccentricity towards the edge B of the column, stress at B increases and stress at A will be decreases. See, this was our case, both are at the same level, sigma maximum, sigma minimum. At B it was sigma maximum, at A it was sigma minimum. Now as our force is moving towards the edge, say like this, it is moving over here, so stress at B will be increasing while stress at A will be decreasing. So diagram will be like this. Okay, like that. So what is the conclusion? When the load starts moving from the neutral axis towards the edge, sigma maximum will be increasing while sigma minimum will be decreasing. Now third figure, that is this one. Okay, now what happened, we are increasing more distance towards the edge P. Okay, so what happened, at one point it will be sigma maximum will be maximum while sigma minimum will become 0 over here, like this. Okay, see this one. At certain eccentricity, minimum stresses at edge A will become 0. So ultimately we can say sigma minimum will be 0, like this. Okay, moving forward, just a minute. Now what we are doing, we are moving more force once again towards the edge, like this. Okay, now what will happen, in the previous one we saw that sigma maximum is maximum while sigma minimum was 0. Now with further movement, sigma minimum will become negative, so we can say tensile, like this. So diagram will be like this. Okay, so the eccentricity corresponding to sigma minimum equals to 0 is called the limit of eccentricity, that is this case. When sigma minimum is 0, so it is known as limit of eccentricity. But now with further increase, just a minute, But now, if eccentricity of the load is greater than the limit of eccentricity, the minimum stress at A will become tensile, or we can say sigma minimum will become negative. Okay, so it will go beyond the zero, say negative. So diagram will be like this. So if I am giving the overview of this theory, just a minute, let me zoom the figure. See, first of all, it's our column, it's our neutral axis, force is axial. Okay, so in that case is sigma maximum and sigma minimum both will be equal, nothing problem will be there. But with further movement of force P towards the edge, we will come to this figure. Okay, now the force is at this point at the distance of eccentricity. What will happen? Sigma maximum at B will be increased while sigma minimum at A will be decreased. So diagram will be like this. Okay, now with further movement of the force towards the edge, what will happen? Sigma maximum will become maximum while sigma minimum will become 0. Okay, so this eccentricity where sigma minimum is 0 is known as limit of eccentricity. Limit of eccentricity. Okay, and with further movement of the force towards the edge, what will happen? Sigma maximum will become maximum while sigma minimum beyond the 0 will becomes negative, like this. So ultimately this diagram will be happen. This is negative, this is positive, like that. Okay, so this is the conclusion of the theory. So from this theory we will get one definition, that is limit of eccentricity. Just a minute, see, the maximum distance of the load from the center of the column such that if load acts within this distance there is no tension in the column. This maximum distance is called the limit of eccentricity. So we can say at that distance where sigma minimum is 0, not negative, means negative stress is not produced, that means tensile stress. Okay, that's known as limit of eccentricity. Okay, so when load is acting within a limit, okay, sigma minimum will be compressive, means we can say figure number 2. We can, just a minute, figure number 2. See, this is our the criteria of a limit where sigma minimum is 0. Okay, so if load is acting within before that a limit, okay, then sigma minimum will be positive, there is no issue with that. But when load acts exactly at a limit, what will happen? Sigma minimum will become 0. But if load acts beyond that limit, then sigma minimum will become negative for that one. Okay, so that's the conclusion which is given over here. You can see when load acting within a limit, sigma minimum will be compressive, first case. Second, when load is acting at the point of a limit, sigma minimum will be 0. And third, when the load is acting beyond a limit, sigma minimum will be tensile, which we have already seen in the above figure. Okay, so this is the limit of eccentricity, and now the no tension condition for that one. So no tension condition, for no tension in the column, the following condition must be satisfied. First one, load must act within the E limit, obviously, then and then tensile stress will not produce, that's the first condition. Second, sigma minimum should not be negative, that's also but obvious. Okay, so sigma minimum's formula will be sigma 0 minus sigma b. So for that one, what we need to do? For it not to be negative, sigma 0 must be greater than sigma b, then and then sigma minimum will not be negative. Okay, so direct stress should be greater or equals to bending stress, that is sigma 0 greater than sigma b. Just a minute, let me zoom this one. So sigma 0 should be greater or equals to sigma b. Sigma 0's formula p by sigma b's formula m by z. Okay, now m equals to, we can say, p into e. Okay, let's put down this value of m, that is p into e. The rest of the terms are as it is, p by equals to p by e into z. P will be cancelled, z will be cross multiplication. So ultimately I can say z by a should be greater or equals to e. So ultimately I can conclude that e should be less or equals to z by, that is the condition of no tension. So it is necessary for eccentricity that it should be less than z by a. So just a minute, it means that for no tension condition, eccentricity should be less than or equals to z by. So that's the condition of no tension. Okay, and then the core or kernel of the section. Okay, just a minute. Yeah, core or kernel of the section. So the central part in the cross section of the column joining the points, see the central part in the cross section of the column, joining the points of E limit such that if the load acts within this part, there will be no tension induced in the column. This central part is known as core or kernel of the section. Say in simple word, if load acts within the E limit, okay, say from this dimension, this one is E limit, this dimension also E limit, this axis also E limit, this axis also E limit. Now if I am joining this one, okay, so ultimately this portion will become core or kernel of the section. Means what? If load acts within these dimensions, or we can say this area, then tensile stress will not produce in the column. So this is known as core or kernel of the section. Okay, so for different cross sections, different criteria are there for the core or kernel of the sections. Means for rectangle section, okay, just a minute, over here I have given derivation, but we need to remember only formula. So for the rectangle section, Ey, or we can say Ex, first of all Ey, that is equals to d by 6. Okay, d by 6 means this dimension, that's equals to, we can say, d by 6, or we can say this also, Ey. Okay, while Ex, that is equals to b by 6, that is this one, this dimension from this to this. Okay, so ultimately we can say horizontal and vertical eccentricity. Ex stands for horizontal eccentricity, while Ey will stands for the vertical eccentricity, Ex and Ey. Okay, so that is 1/6 of the dimension in simple words. Next, hollow rectangle section. So for hollow rectangle section, Ey equals to BD cube, capital BD cube minus small bd cube, divided by 6d, 6 into capital D, in the bracket capital BD minus small bd, where capital B and D are outer dimension while small b and d inner dimension. Similarly, Ex vice versa, that is capital DB cube minus small db cube, divided by 6 into capital B, in the bracket capital BD minus small bd. That's for the hollow rectangle section. Then circular section, this one. Okay, so core or kernel of the section will be, we can say, this one is d by 8 and this one also d by 8, so 1/8 of the diameter. So Ex and Ey both equals to, see, Ey and Ex both equals to d by 8, diameter divided by 8, that is for the circular section. Then for hollow circular section, okay, Ex and Ey will be, say, Ey, that is over here, that is capital D square plus small d square divided by 8 times d. Similarly, Ex is also same, capital D square plus small d square divided by 8 into capital D, where capital D stands for outer diameter while small d stands for inner diameter. Okay, then I section and T section. Over here core section is shown in the figure for I section, and this one is for the T section. See, mostly we need to remember the formula for rectangle section, that is 1/6 of the dimension b by 6, and we can say d by 6. Okay, then we can say square, that also same parameters, 1/6 of, we can say, dimension, that is b by 6 ultimately. Okay, and circular, that is 1/8 of the diameter, d by 8. Okay, that's the formulas which we need to remember. Let us see any one of the examples for regarding that one. Okay, one example, actually 2 or 3 examples has been asked. I have covered one example for this one. Okay, let's solve this sum. Okay, see, draw a neat sketches for the kernel of the following sections. It has been asked in November 2018. Rectangle block, that is 300 cross 400, circular section, that is of 300 mm diameter, and square, which is 600 centimeter square area. So first of all, let's solve it for the rectangular block. Rectangle block 300 cross 400. So first of all, let's draw the figure. B 300 and depth, that is 400. Now we have seen in the theory, for the core, or we can say kernel of the sections, for the rectangle sections, the kernel of the sections will be 1/6 of the diameter. Means I am going horizontally, say Ex, then it will be horizontal dimensions divided by 6, and if I am going Ey, then vertical dimension divided by 6. So Ex equals to b by 6, Ey equals to d by 6. See, that's what I have done over here. B and D, that is 300 cross 400, Ex, that is b by 6, that is 300 by 6, 50 mm. Ey, that is d by 6, that is 400 by 6, 66.67 mm. And if I need to show it in the sketches, what I need to do, I need to draw a figure of the rectangle regular sections. Now draw the central, or we can say longitudinal axis. Now as Ex has come, that is 50, so from center go 50 towards this, go 50 towards this. Okay, just a minute, like this. And in vertical dimension EY is 66.6. So from the center go upward 66.67, go downward 66.67, and then just join these 4 points. So just a minute, join these 4 points like this. So ultimately this is our kernel of the section. Okay, so that's the criteria. Next, that is of circular section. Now in case of the circular section, they have given us diameter 300 mm. So we have already seen in the theory Ex and Ey both equals to d by 8. So 300 by 8, so 37.5. If I need to show it in figure, what I need to do, that draw first of all circular section like this. I have shown the circular section. This one is the center. Okay, so I need to go d by 8 dimension, that is 37.5, along the all periphery. Means I need to take diameter as 37.5 and just join them like that. So ultimately that will be my core or kernel of the section. Then the last one, that is of square section. Now in case of the square section, they have given us area, not the dimension. So we know that okay, for square section area equals to b cross b. So we can say area equals to b square. So we can say b equals to root of area. From this equation we will get the dimensions. So b equals to root of area is given to us, that is 600 mm square. So we can say 24.5 mm. Okay, I got the dimension of the square, that is 24.5 by 24.5. Now we have already seen in the theory that Ex and Ey is same for the square section, that is 1/6 of the dimension, that is b by 6. Now 24.5 by 6, so 4.08. If I need to show it in the sketch, what I need to do, I need to first of all draw the square section, then neutral or we can say centroidal axis or longitudinal. Then from the center I need to go 4.06 along all four sides, this and this, and then I need to join them all 4 points. Clear? Just a minute. Yeah, like this. So this is my, we can say, core or kernel of the sections. Say 2 or 3 sums have been asked. I have solved over here only one example. So simple, digits will be changed, parameters will be the common. So hope so you have got this one. Okay, I am stopping this video right now, because in this video we have covered the theoretical portion as well as this example of core or kernel of the section. In the next video I will cover the examples of this chapter. Okay, thank you.